So they got a pretty cool guest. Got Kate French of Vainglory. How you
Yay!
doing today, Kate?
So great to be here, Mike. It's great. Thank you so much. I'm doing really good.
Good. So when did your like musical journey kind of kick off? When did you start listening to music,
Well,
or
so
what's your story behind getting into music in the first place?
for the beginning of everything I think you learn in school, I think you go through that. And I was always and your parents as well. I remember being 3 and 4 years old and sitting in the closet with a record player listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I see the bad moon, rocking out as a little teeny tiny girl. And just, the parents, I think, really start the influence. And then I got into dance, believe it or not, and I got in front of a lot of people. And the getting in front of a lot of people made me kind of want to do that a little bit more. And then, going through school and choir and things like that. But I think when I hit, more interest in the guitar and that kind of a bass thing was I had a neighbor, and he was like an Ingve wannabe, and he used to like stick his cigarette in the headstock, and he'd be doing all the licks, and he'd be like, he was like the coolest guy. But I used to go over there and watch him play. He'd be, doodling. And then later on in life, he became a roommate of mine, and he put this CD, or this record at the time, on for me. And he was like, guess who this is? And is this a, and it sounded like a dude. And he said, no, this is a chick. This is Leather Leone and Chastain. And I was like, holy shit. And I've always been kind of a powerhouse singer. I've always been a little bit more, than women. But it's not even that. It's just this thing, this power thing. And then when I heard that, I just felt so connected to it. And that was Leather Leone and Chastain, who I would further be in Chastain. And boy, when I heard that he lost his singer, I was like, holy shit. You know, I got my demo ready, and we went down to LA. We were at Foundations Forum, which was this big get together for all these executives that taught people how to do industry stuff. And I was sitting in this Ingve Malmsteen class, and Ingve was sitting in front of me. He had his girlfriend escort him, onto the stage. This little tiny petite Oriental girl. It was so cute. And she sat him down, and he started playing. And then someone goes, but you're not better than David T. Chastain. And David was right behind me, and I had my tape, and I was like, so I gave him my tape and my demo, and he called me up to the room. And he was a perfect gentleman, which I was kind of weirded out. I thought, oh fuck, he's gonna call me up there and he's gonna try to scam or some shit. And he never did. And he said, I really like your voice. I want you to fly out to Atlanta and write some songs with me, and we'll see what happens from there. And I was like, yeah. So at 24 years old, I flew for my first time, flew to Atlanta, Georgia, where I live now. And I live just on the outskirts. I actually have a farm here. I have a 5 acre farm, which I could have never bought in California. So that's kind of my whole musical, career. And then I did 3 albums with him, and now I'm in Vainglory, and just did my first solo album. So did I just tell you my whole life story in like 5 minutes?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning though. So like
Okay.
with what was like your first like instrument though? Did you play like guitar first or bass, or
No,
what did you kind of learn
actually,
first?
the first instrument I ever played, I wanted to play drums. I went in fourth grade. I had my drumsticks, and I went in, walk into the band director, and I'm like, yeah, I want to play drums. And there's like 20 guys behind me, and they're like, we want to play drums too. And so he says, no, you are going on the baritone horn. I was like, oh, fuck. I didn't want to play the baritone horn. And it's basically like a small tuba is what it is. But in hindsight, looking back, I learned something that I didn't learn, or I would not have learned if I had played drums, which is music theory. And so I learned a lot, and that's kind of how I started. And and then with my friend that I told you about that I live with, it was a guitar virtuoso. He gave me my first BC Rich Mockingbird, and it was all fucked up. He had like tape on it and stuff, and it was cracked. And I was like, yeah. And so he taught me some stuff there. But my first instrument was a baritone horn in the fourth grade. But choir also, joining choir and being in that element where you're actually reading sheet music, and you're actually harmonizing with people. and it's just such a vibe, when that happens, that harmony. I think that's where I really really got into it. That I've always loved music, and like I said, sitting in the closet at 3 and 4 years old, singing to Creedence Clearwater Revival. I mean, didn't you do that too when you were a kid? Did your parents, were they real into music?
Yeah, for sure. I was always I was brought up on Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So that
Yeah.
was my kind of upbringing.
Right, right, right. So now I'm probably a little bit older, but the generation was the 60s for me, and it was, the Beatles and Credence and things like that. And then my parents and my dad was a real music fanatic, and they always listened to music, and it was so eclectic. There were so many things that they listened to. And so I just always had a love. It was kind of my escape. And I don't know about you, but it just, to this day, it's really something that takes you out of your head, gets you into this spiritual place, this place that's more connected, I think. And that's why I've always been drawn to it. So I love it. You play guitar?
I actually I was a saxophone player and violin when I was in
Oh, cool.
school. So that's what I play. Play a
Right
little
on.
guitar,
I
but
tried
mainly
the
sax and
violin.
violin.
I had a
Yeah.
violin for a while, and I was okay. I kind of sucked at it. It's a lot more difficult without frets. And my
Yeah.
husband's like, I'll just get you a fretted one. And I'm like, no, just don't worry about it.
You got to
But
memorize the positions. So yeah.
the violin, and actually, we just got some software that is saxophone software, and it was on the last song I released. I do this thing just for myself. Long time ago, I heard Stevie Nicks. She's talking about how she just writes songs, and she just keeps consistently writing songs and builds her catalog, and it just made perfect sense to me. So I started doing this thing every 2 weeks where I write a song. And I wrote a song this last 2 weeks, and I put saxophone on it, and with
Wow.
software, and it was just so killer. Nobody's doing saxophone anymore, and it's just such a beautiful instrument. I mean, Pink Floyd, all these songs that had that killer sound on it, and I'm going to bring that shit back. I'm going to bring it back with metal. So this song
There
I
you go.
did, yeah, this was Done Is Done. It was what it was called. It was kind of more of a melancholy, kind of a Alice in Chainsy, grungy, Queen's Reiki, but then, and it was just, and then it had the saxophone lead, and it was just, it's really pretty. Yeah.
Let's go back to the Chastain days. So how was it like, playing metal in like the mid '90s, with like grunge going on and all that? What was it like, playing that kind of music when it wasn't
Right.
that popular anymore?
Well, understand that I had been doing metal in bands since since the mid 80s. I was in a band called Tantrum, and then I was in a band called Machine Gun Kelly, and I was in a band called One Bad Apple, because I kind of got in with Chastain on the latter part. So it was difficult, when I got in with him. I It was at the tail end of everything. And so it is hard too, because it was my first real, my first recording project. And I was thrown kind of to the wolves on it to learn stuff. So it was, it was there. And I was touring. We toured that album, and we actually went to Europe for that too. And Europe always has had metal. It is so strange. When I went to Europe and we toured that, uh, the first album that I did with Chastain, everybody was still listening to disco in Germany. When we went there, we went into
Wow.
this club, and everybody was like, dunce, 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 dunce. They were still doing
Wow.
the disco thing, and Bee Gees and stuff. And so they were behind, and they were kind of still doing what we were doing. But it was, it was just an experience of learning. It wasn't really a bad thing. And I think that when you are connected with a certain kind of music, you just kind of have a love for it. It really doesn't matter what is, comes along, especially in this day and age. Everybody is doing something. Everybody's got their own, that you can release on your own and do your own thing. So it was just, you stick with what you love, and you do what you love, and all the other stuff kind of goes on the wayside. It really doesn't matter who likes it and who doesn't. It's never really been about that for me. It's been about what I love, what I enjoy doing. But Chastain was a growing experience, definitely. The first three albums I did them all on my own. So I recorded those from a studio remotely on my own, and with the music. And here I am. I've never done this before. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? No producer, no nothing. Just me recording these albums on my own in this garage. So my experience with music and with that initially is just learning. I've learned so much about it, but doing that kind of music when grunge was coming in, I mean, I didn't really look at the grunge too much. I kind of stuck with the fans that were into the metal. So it really didn't make, any difference to me. I was kind of focused on my art. It's what I do. I love everything though. I love grunge. I had STP. I had all that shit. Chastain hates grunge. He has like a shirt that has a circle that says no grunge. he,
Wow.
he hates it. But I am so open, I'm so open to everything and so into all kinds of music. And it didn't phase me. I love doing what I do with the metal, and that sound that we were creating was just specific to that. So I wish it would have been in mainstream. You do always feel like you missed the mark, when you're not in that time frame that's happening right then, right now, of course. But you really have to make the most of what you have in front of you, and that's what I did. Yeah.
Now with the Chastain, did you guys play like how was it like in those days? You guys used to go to Europe a lot then, or what was kind of
No,
the
no,
story
we went
behind the
we went and
touring
did
thing?
a once there, we did a promotional tour there, and then we went did an East Coast tour. So it was kind of an experience of just checking it out for the first album. We didn't do a lot of touring with that. But it was that experience, like I said, that I got to learn something I had never done before. And boy, in the East Coast, going from California at 70 degrees to going to Chicago and Michigan, where it was, I don't know, like 15 below and snowing. And we had like this jet heater in this big warehouse where we practiced initially before we went out. That was tough. That was tough, but you learn about touring and what it's really about. And, if you got to go pee or something, you're on a schedule, forget about it. So, touring is like, I don't know, I've done it a few times and it's tough. Have you ever toured?
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it's tough. It isn't for the faint of heart. And I think I told you about this when we were off the air. My ex-husband is in this band called Vicious Rumors, and they've been touring since like the late 70s or some shit. And they're just tour dogs. Some people get into that vibe of touring and never being home and never having creature comforts and never having, it's a wherever I may roam, as Metallica says, and that's what they do. But for me, the experience and what I experienced with a small amount of touring, holy shit, and if you're not touring and you don't have the luxuries, and the money to do something that is really keeping you comfortable, you're uncomfortable, a lot of the time. So, and then, you get sick, which I did, and you got to go on stage, and it really doesn't matter, what you feel like. So, and even as a singer, you got to go, you got to try. So it's tough, if you've never toured before, but it was a necessary thing, I think. And a lot of people do it still because they want to connect with their fans, and it is a necessary thing. And we still have people saying with our Vainglory stuff, with this new CD, this double CD that we just put out, to come tour. And I see why they do it. They want you to, connect with them and meet with them. And we did that with Vainglory too. And I love people, and it was really nice to connect with them. So maybe we'll do a small tour, but I like to keep stuff on the festival level, on doing like a show. I think those are the best things, a one-off at a festival, or just going on a small tour rather than doing something for a couple months or whatnot, because it's tough. It's not for the faint of heart.
Now, how did the Vainglory project kind of kick off? How did that start?
Well, it started when I auditioned for the band. David Chastain, Vainglory, was on the label. And David Chastain has a label called Leviathan Records, and he had picked up Corbin King, who is my now husband. And that's a trip how all that shit happened. Sometimes in life you don't expect things to happen, and then they just happen, and you're like, how the fuck did that happen? So so anyway, with the Vainglory thing, he said, "You want to audition for this band?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess." And then it kind of went on the wayside. I kind of blew it off. And I was like, another guitar virtuoso. Because I've been in so many bands where I sang for guitar virtuosos. I sang for guitar virtuosos in Tantrum, and I sang for some pretty good guitarists in one at Apple. And anyway, um, so I kind of put him on the back burner. But then I thought I was going through a divorce, and I thought, okay, I'm going to check this out a little. And so I started writing and singing to the stuff, and I realized that I really loved it. And then Chastain was kind of like, I don't know if I want them to be in a band together or not, because he wasn't sure what he wanted to do, I think. And we were kind of kept apart for a little bit. And then I really wanted to connect with him. He really wanted to connect with me. And somehow we got each other's emails and we connected. And I was like, hey, and we started doing the demos, and the connection with the music and my voice really worked out. And he's like, yeah. And he had a relationship he was in for 7 or 8 years, and I had just been going through a divorce. I had been with my husband for about the same amount of time, so none of that was expected when we were going through the recording process. But we started to make a connection when we had to work with our machine stuff, the recording equipment and whatnot. And we just became really good friends. And I had never even met him, and I kind of started liking him just by his voice, just because he was a really kind person. And we connected, and then we really connected. And then I flew out, and we spent a couple days together, and they were a great couple days. And then it just went on from there. And then we bought a house together, and it's just, it's we've been together ever since. And it's an awesome thing because I get to, sing, and I've learned a lot from him. And I fronted his band, and I'm still doing that. We're working on a new album right now, so it's kind of more of an old school Vainglory. People have been asking for a new album since we started doing, since we did this one. And this one was a double CD. I don't know if I did you want to talk about that now, or you
Yeah. Well, yeah. Talk about the double CD. Yeah.
okay, cool. So on Animated Insanity Records and No Dust Records, this Vainglory double CD, this just came out this last July. So I have a record label called Rebellion Records US, and I wasn't able to release it the way that I wanted to because we didn't have a shit ton of money. And we had a small thing that we did. So they picked both CDs up and they blew it up. And this is a full booklet, and it's just killer lyrics and everything. And they did a bunch of really good stuff with it, and it's for the same price as a one CD. And it's both of the CDs that I did. Now Vainglory had a singer prior to me, and they did one CD without when Chastain picked Vainglory up. So there's actually 3 Vainglory CDs, and this is the 2 that I'm on. So it's just nice, and it's a really cool thing. So it's Animated Insanity Records in the States, and then it's No Dust Records in Europe. And it's nice to have, worldwide representation on both labels. So it's been really cool. Benjamin Nibla, Online Metal Promo, you know him.
Yep. He
He helped
connected
us
us
out
here.
with this. Yeah, he was our manager back in the day, and he helped us out a lot. We did some stuff in Mexico, Monterey Metal Fest, and he was responsible for that. He did a lot of stuff for us, and now we kind of reconnected with him for promotions and whatnot. And he's just a really good guy, and so he's been helping us with this. And it's really nice. If you want to purchase it, go to either animatedinsanityrecords.com or nodustrecords.com and pick it up. And that's everything that I've done. First is kind of a first CD. There's 2 CDs on here. It's kind of a classical, what we did when we first met, more of a classic metal. And then the other one, the Manifesting Destiny, which is the second one, is kind of a harder. It's just me like yelling at you a lot. you know, that I mean, it's not too much of that, because he doesn't want me doing that. I wanted to try that, so I can do that whole, that whole thing that goes on. But I'm a singer, I sing. And so I'm used to, doing the kind of Dio-esque Metallica thing. I don't know if you've ever heard what I do, but, but I wanted to kind of try to go into new school and show them that I could do that, just because I think a lot of people think that singers can't do that and that it's a hard thing to do. So I can articulate like that. So I did that in this, and people were like, what the fuck are you doing? But I did it, and it shows that I can do it. I do like kind of some of that kind of stuff. It's like a power thing, I guess. I don't know. Do you like the heavy stuff?
Yeah, I like a little bit of everything. So
I do
I'm
too.
into like the classic. If it's gonna be like death metal, I'm gonna go with like the classics. They're like Death, Obituary, Morbid
Yeah.
Angel.
Yeah, we
But
played
I
the
like
obituary.
power metal too. Like Dio and
Right. Right.
Bathory and all that. But yeah,
Right. And that's what we're doing, kind of the power metal thing. Now I think we're gonna go more old school melodic with this next one, because I think I screamed Corbin out. It's like having a screamy girlfriend. And he was like, don't do that again. He's like, I want you to sing on this one. I'm like, okay, I will. But other than this, too, I just put out my first solo CD ever on the 15th of this last month, and it's streaming on all platforms, Apple, Spotify, everything. And it's called Depth Perception. And that was a really cool thing for me to do, because it's some metal, and then it's some things that you wouldn't think for me to write. It's mostly really thoughtful stuff. When I don't know if you've ever written poetry or written anything to where you're like, you want to put your feelings down, or if you've ever tried to write a song. Have you ever tried to write a song?
no, I never have.
You gotta try.
Yeah, I should,
it's
huh?
it's very, very therapeutic. It's really cool. And I started this from scratch. There was this program that I've got, and you can see my studio behind me, and it's called FL Studio. And see, Corbin got into the rap game. He does hip hop and rap, and he works with Ritz. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he's this rap artist, and Tech Nine. And so that he started to get into that, and he had to get into this DAW called FL Studio. And I was like, man, I want to learn that shit.
Hmm.
So I had already been doing voiceovers with a DAW called Reaper. And so I started to learn FL Studio. And then I just started writing songs on FL Studio myself. And I thought, fuck, I'm going to just do this all by myself. I don't want to fucking rely on anybody anymore. I don't want to have to say, oh, wait, I'll wait for you. I don't want to do that. So I did this whole album by myself from scratch, from concept to the end to the production. I had Corbin help me with mastering. I did the mixing, and it's good. I'm proud of It's a little bit of my pop stuff, because I wanted to combine back in the day in the 80s. If you're a child of the 80s, most of the girls were listening to Madonna, and dance music and things
Hmm.
like that. So this combines all the things that I am. And what I did was this new thing. I call it pedal, and it's a combination of pop and metal. So I've got this one song that's the first song on the CD. It's called Shake It. And it's heavy guitars, with very pop groove. And it's just this driving song. It's really killer. But I'm going to get sexy, and I'm going to dance. And I've done hip hop dancing before, so I know how to do that. And then I'm going to wear my guitar and play what I played on the guitar. And I'm going to kind of do that. And that'll be a video that's going to happen within the next couple months. So I've been referring to AI to get my look and how I want
Hmm.
to be for it, trying on all these different colors of hair and shit, and figuring out what I want to do. I think I'm going to do this, and then just do kind of the I like the old school metal, the leather jacket. I just like that with the blue jeans and the high tops. I
Yep.
always gravitate back to that, and the long hair. It's just kind of who I am, and that's just kind of what I love. So I'm going to kind of be doing the hip hoppy dance thing, the with the guitar on and off, and then that's called Shake It. And it's just about the pursuit of music for different people, for, or not different people, for the first verse is a man, second's a woman, and it's just saying to pursue what you want to. It's comes off of. Have you ever heard the saying, "Fake it till you make it"? Have you ever
Yeah, I've
heard
heard
that?
that. Yeah.
So when I worked for AT&T, and I was having a rough time, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, because I wasn't really technologically inclined, but I was a salesperson from hell. I can sell a turd. I could sell anything. I can really, because I like people and I can connect with them. So they used to tell me, Kate, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, just fake it till you make it. And I've heard it a few times, and I thought, okay, so I'm going to say about music and musicians like J Lo or Elvis. and I'm going to say shake it till you make it. And so that's where that came up. So it's exciting for me to have finally accomplished something on my own without having to rely on anybody else. And that was my thing. And now I'm working on starting all my guitar stuff by myself. So a guitar based solo. This was a keyboard based mostly the last one because I play keyboards as well. I don't know if you can see my keyboard here, but
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. So it's neat. 2 weeks ago or the 16th it came out. So it's streaming on all platforms under Rebellion Records US under solo artist Kate French. Woohoo!
So for the rest of 2024, is there any like shows that you're planning or anything that you could tell the fans out there maybe to look out for outside of the music video that you said is coming out in the next couple months?
So for me personally, I'm still doing the song every 2 weeks sing. And you can look on my Instagram or my Facebook and I post a song every 2 weeks and it has a neat little album cover. For Vainglory, we're working on a new album and Corbin prefers to get the whole album together and then to release it. So that should be released in like August of 2024. So they should watch out for Vainglory 2024, and then possibly doing something at the very end of the year, maybe some one-off shows or something like that. But I bought the farm here. I have 5 acres, and it's hard to leave my horses and my chickens and all that. I'm older. I'm 54 years old. It's been a long road. I've been doing this since 1986, and I'll always do. I think I'll be like 90 years old, being like, just
I
because when
guess
it's
that's why Ozzy never gives it up, right? Ozzy Osbourne, he's still
That's
going, of course.
right. But it's
Yeah.
just, even if you don't have a big following or whatever, there's just something that it just it's in your heart, it's in your soul. And just like you doing what you do, once it's in there, it's in there. And I've been doing it for so long and I'm just getting better at it. And I think that through life, I think learning things consistently, it helps you to grow and to just be more fulfilled in your life if you're learning something every day. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of challenging myself to be a better musician and to do some things and step outside of the box that I didn't think that I could do. So that's what I'm doing this next year. Are you a musician at all? Do you do any kind of music, or do you love music? Or
Well, because I'm into the radio now, so I'm full time radio guy now. I got my radio
okay,
show and podcasts and all that.
right
So that's kind
on,
of I want to
right
contribute
on.
to music in that way. So that's kind of
Ooh,
what I've been doing, interviewing a
very
bunch of different
cool.
people.
So I did radio. I
Okay.
was on a station called WJBB, and I had my little what do you call it? A sounder. Kate French, heart, soul, and rock and roll. It was a 60s, 70s, and 80s station. Hi, this is Kate French. Welcome to I did that whole thing, and then after
Wow.
that, I did voiceovers, and I still do
Okay.
voiceovers sometimes, and I love voiceovers. So I do the acting type ones, and then I did imaging, for people,
Yeah.
and I worked for commercials by the dozen doing that for a while, and it just didn't pay enough of what I wanted, so I kind of got out of that. Now I'm with Tag Talent Agency, and I do a little bit of it still, just not too much because there just wasn't enough money in it for me. And then I have a podcast called My Voice, and it's just me talking about things that'll help people, things that if you have a problem, what ails you or whatever, things that I've found that really work for me. And then it goes into advice, helping I think men and women relate to each other and whatnot, and just topics that I have on my mind. So that's on Spotify, and it's Kate French. My Voice is what it's called. So I know what you do. I do. What do you use for a DAW? Which one do you use
Which one? What?
when you cut audio? What DAW do you use?
Oh, well, I basically use Audacity.
Oh,
That's what I use.
okay,
Audacity
okay. I
or
use
Adobe.
I use Reaper.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
I
used
never used
Reaper.
that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Okay. I'll look it
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Well, you got your DAW, you're into it, and you've learned it, so it's kind of once you've learned it, it's a done deal. I don't do Apple. I don't know if that's Apple based. We do computer
No,
based.
it's a window, PC based.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's Reaper. It's just kind of what we ended up doing. So, I guess you go with what you know. And so that's what I'm doing. But it's been helpful. It's been really good. And I love it. God forbid we should get some kind of a EMP or something and all the shit goes away.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
know,
worry
right?
about that? Are you like, oh
Yeah.
shit?
It's all
what
gone.
happens? Some solar storm or some shit comes and wipes our shit out. What the fuck are we gonna do?
That's why you
Um,
got to burn stuff onto CDs, right?
what's that?
You got to burn the files onto CDs.
Yeah,
Keep
I
them
was
on
thinking
CDs.
about that. We have something called an F
Yeah,
book, and it's this little thing that we can compartmentalize stuff in. I don't know if that would burn out. And we got to get what do you call Faraday bags and put all our shit in Faraday bags.
yeah. Basically. So last question here for our audience.
Okay.
What advice would you give to people that are, starting out in music or just people in general? Like, why should you get into music? Why play music?
So, do you want me to give advice to vocalists
Yeah,
specifically?
vocalists. Let's
Vocalists.
focus on vocalists. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so I one of the things that I did when I was learning and getting into this whole thing was I went to a million vocal coaches, because I wanted to just be perfect and just do all this shit, that I couldn't do at that time, hit these high notes, do all this stuff. And I will tell you that my advice to vocalists or, to anyone that's doing anything in music is to do, don't go to take lessons from anybody. And the big thing that you've got to do is record yourself. Get yourself a DAW, get yourself something that you can record your voice on, or whatever you're doing, if you're learning whatever instrument you're learning, and record yourself over and over and over and over again. Playback, record, and listen to yourself, and then craft your craft around what you want to sound like. Because don't be doing fucking karaoke. Karaoke is fucking bullshit. You're wasting your fucking time. I don't want to hear you sounding or trying to sound like someone else, because you ain't, and you're never going to. So if you get your stuff and you develop your own style, you record yourself, and then you play back, record and play back, and then you kind of take from a little bit of everything and start writing your own songs. Write your own stuff. Don't copy tune shit, because I can't stand that. I guess there's some people that listen to that, but I just really feel that that's not I think that creative artists should, I've had so many friends that have been stuck in that cover tune thing. So my advice would be to do your own thing, create your own stuff, record yourself, and listen back. And do not worry about throwing your money at people, because they're out there to take your fucking money. You go to someone and they're going to take your money, and they're not going to tell you the whole fucking thing. They're going to be like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, come in next time. And I had so many, I spent $250 a pop, a lesson on this lady named Judy Davis. And Judy Davis taught Barbara Streisand how to sing. And I used to go to San Francisco, me and a few people that are kind of famous, and they were in the class. And she was good and everything, but she just taught you like syllables and stuff. And she just made you come back and spend more fucking money. So stop spending your money, record yourself, take from what you want, and then you'll end up having your own original thing. But my advice is be original. That's my advice.
All right.